Hi, I'm Heather Telford. Welcome to this demo featuring products from Penny Black's new holiday collection, Season of Hope. I'm going to show you how I created this moody, atmospheric scene with the new stamp Quietude. I'm working on hot pressed watercolor paper with this full scenic stamp. I've taped the panel down on all four sides so that I will have a frame, a masked frame at the end, and I've stamped it on a piece of scratch paper so that I have a reference. I'm going to stamp the whole scene with two colors of archival ink. Archival ink dries quickly and is permanent, so when I start watercoloring over the top, I'm not going to disturb any of that base image underneath. I'm using Faded Jeans Archival and Vintage Photo Archival, and these are just two of the main colors in the scene. The whole scene is basically three colors. It's brown and grey blue and a purple color. So I'm going for a moody late fall sort of look, definitely before the snow. Although I know at some stage I'll be stamping this image again as a snowy scene. Now that I've got the image stamped on my panel, I can see where I'm going to paint the sky. I'm going to paint the sky with diluted Stormy Sky and Seedless Preserves ink. And I'm just building up that color slowly. It's easier to add more color than it is to take away, so I'm just painting a diluted layer of Stormy Sky, and then I can add some purpley clouds with the Seedless Preserves, and just continue adding water, diluted ink, and working that into that space to get a smooth look, a smooth transition of color, so the purple looks like some clouds in a sunset sky. I'm not sure whether it's just that my Stormy Sky ink is a paler color or whether I really need to re-ink it, but I go through a lot of it in this project. And Seedless Preserves is a much bolder color, and I don't need to press that down on the glass mat again, but I keep on getting more more Stormy Sky. So now I'm working on the lake, and I'm wanting the lake to kind of reflect the sky, but I'm trying to create the look of a lighter area in the center of the lake there. Kind of like the sun is trying to get through the clouds, so you can see a brighter area, but the sun is not actually going to be seen on this day. Then I've got some reflections from the sky with the Seedless Preserves in the lake. And again, because all that lake area is still wet, I can drop color in and get soft blends. I'm inking the foreground now with Vintage Photo Distress ink. So this one is water soluble, not like the archival that I started with. And I'm blending some of the Vintage Photo with some Stormy Sky. So I'm blending the blue with the gray. This is all adding to this kind of moody atmosphere of a late fall day. And I will keep on kind of working on each of the three areas of the stamp: the sky and the lake and the foreground. The foreground is going to have the most brown, but I am going to introduce brown into other areas on the panel as well, so that it really all works together. I'm stamping the trees, the larger group of trees and the tiny little group of trees on the horizon, and then over the grasses and the foreground again with Vintage Photo. So this is introducing some brown to the trees in the lake over the top of the blue. You notice that I spritzed the stamp before I stamped it this time. This just adds a little bit more liquid to the ink that I'm stamping, making it easier to blend on the paper. So I'm picking up water with my brush and then just blending that brown. I'm not losing the blue tones underneath, but I'm adding a little bit of brown to them, so that ties the trees in the lake in with the foreground. While the ink in the trees is still wet, I can blend some of that downwards into the lake area, so I've got some reflections of the trees, the brown reflections of the trees in the lake, and a little bit on that little stand of trees in the distance as well. And then I just add a little bit more water in the center there. I'm really trying to keep that bit lighter, not white, but a really light bluey gray. Now I'm adding some stormy sky, so more of the blue back into the trees, and then just a bit of shadow down one side of each tree. So I'm going to get more definition on the trees now, because it's going to look like one side is in shadow and the light's coming from the other side. Again, a spritz of water so that there's liquid ink sitting on the trees ready for me to blend. And I need to ground those trees a little bit on the little bit of land that they're sitting on, so a little bit of dark brown at the base there as well. And you can see how easy it is to just get a shadow on the side of the trees, because I applied, it was ground espresso, a darker brown ink, just to the sides of the trees before I stamped, and now a little bit at the base of the trees to just show the edge of that little island area. Now I'm going to make the grasses and the foreground darker too with ground espresso, because I want them to be a little more prominent and stand out from the background. And yet again, some more stormy sky. You can see each time that I add that, I don't get a pure stormy sky look, but I do get a bluey tinge to the brown area, and that just works in with the lake. I'm going to frame the shot now with some blending, and I definitely dried the whole panel before I started this. I don't want to drag any of that wet ink from the stamping. I'm just using Stormy Sky to frame the edges. Just makes it even more moody and atmospheric in my opinion. So a little bit of Stormy Sky around the edges of the sky and lake area, and then a little bit of framing on the ground area with Vintage Photo. Makes it look a little bit like an old photograph, I think, speaking of vintage photos. Just to have that darkening around the edges, that's something that you see in old photographs. And then the fun part, the reveal of the nice clean lines of the masking. And I have my moody late fall scene. I'm not going to add words to this. I just love the look of the scene by itself. I hope you enjoyed this technique, starting with archival and then doing all the watercolor over the top. Thanks so much for watching. We are glad you stopped by our virtual booth for some stamping fun and inspiration. If you have any questions about the creative process shown in this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below and I will reply as soon as possible. A complete supply list will also be listed in the YouTube description box below.